Welcome back to Unmute Yourself. I'm your host, Jennifer Carter, and this podcast is about lifting the curtain on leadership, purpose, and the real stories behind women who dared to do things differently. We'll talk about how they found their path, the struggles along the way, and how they built something that truly matters. These are normal people doing extraordinary things because I want you to know you are extraordinary too.
Okay.
My guest today is Karen Lazarou. She is truly exceptional, and I'm so excited for y'all to hear what she has to say. So she is a strategic executive leader who blends deep psychology, systems thinking, and high-stakes performance expertise to help organizations and leaders navigate complexity, trauma, and transformation. She's held senior leadership roles at global tech companies, driving growth, leading global teams, and guiding organizations through intense change. But what makes Karen's perspective so unique is her psychology background. She's a licensed professional counsel. She's a licensed professional counselor with advanced training in neuropsychology and organizational systems. And earlier in her career, she focused in forensic psychology, including profiling violent offenders. She has also served as a performance coach for elite athletes, including the U.S. Olympic equestrian team. Y'all, I can't make this stuff up. I'm telling y'all, smart people just fall from the sky. And here we are, Karen. I'm so happy to have you. And I know that you understand human behavior under pressure in a way that very few people do. So today, y'all, we're talking about workplace trauma, how it forms, shows up, and how people and organizations actually heal. Karen, I am so honored to have you here.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so glad you asked me. So it's wonderful.
We're going to have a great
We
time.
are.
Yes, we are.
Mhm.
So your profile is so interesting to me, right? Because you've got tech world, which is a whole beast unto itself.
Mhm.
You have psychology, you've got performance coaching, executive leadership, right? So take us back to the beginning and what first drew you to psychology.
Well, I think they all kind of blend together in a kind of weird way. Um, but I love the brain. I love how it works. I love how all of the pieces and the parts create their own pathways and lead us to our behavior, whether we understand it or not. We are acting in ways that is deeply ingrained. Your brain doesn't know the difference between being chased by a lion or getting yelled at on a phone call. So, understanding how that works and how do we start managing that and growing from it is what drew me in. I love the.
I love,
Go, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just such a good visual. Like, we don't understand the difference between being chased by a wild animal and being yelled at on the phone.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
mean,
true.
our brain just sees it all as the same, right? It's a chemical response, and then we get into these patterns, right? So, we through evolution, we had to worry about being chased by a wild animal or all the dangers that are out there in the world. So our brain could has these patterns that it follows when that kicks in, and even though we've evolved and we're, for the most part, probably not getting chased by a wild animal, that reaction and that chemical reaction that your brain has, it's the same.
Man, I get that. I have so many experiences going back in my brain of me physically responding as if I'm being chased by a dang wild animal.
Mhm.
But something else super cool about you is that you're an LPC and have all of this wonderful experience in behavioral health and psychology. And you didn't just take like a normal, oh, I'm going to go be a therapist or clinical work. You profiled extremely dangerous individuals.
Mhm.
So, how did that experience shape the way you read people and systems?
Um, it was accidental on how that happened. So I wasn't planning on doing that. I thought I probably did plan it out. Then I was told, no, you shouldn't do that because you're a woman. And so of course I thought, well, that doesn't make sense, so I think
Yeah,
I'm going to. So I followed that path probably out of spite a little bit. But I
I
love
get that.
solving, yeah, I love solving puzzles. I love finding out the why, why would someone do some things that most people can't conceptualize. We don't have a place in our, on our understanding for it. So I just started kind of diving down that rabbit hole. Um, and again, looking at that patterns and trying to solve the problems and solve the issues. And I just started getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So I enjoy that complexity of why we do things, and then predicting what's going to happen next based on just a culmination of behaviors and experiences. So being able to predict most likely what's going to happen next.
That's amazing. People are such complex puzzle pieces.
Hmm.
And when you were talking, it made me think about if a person is that complex in what they've been through and what it's created, and then their patterns for the future, where are the parallels, do you think, between trauma or an individual story and trauma inside organizations?
So I think you have to differentiate between um like PTSD. Usually think of something that happens. So maybe you're a part of a horrible accident, or you're a victim of some type of a crime, or some type of a very negative experience. That is a single situation of PTSD. Most likely, those things don't happen again. So that is, I think, where most people are stuck in what PTSD. People that they're in the military or in war zones. PTSD. It's a single incident. But what they don't realize is that PTSD can happen over time. And that's what happens in organizations. So
Interesting.
it's that trickling, it's that trickling effect of a behavior that puts you in that fight or flight situation. It creates anxiety, it creates incredible stress. Again, your brain doesn't know the difference between hiding from a bullet or getting screamed at, where you're just feeling this anxiety and this fear. Fearing for your life is not that different to your brain feel it is to feel worried about your livelihood. Am I going to lose my
Wow.
job? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage or my grocery bill and take care of my kids? That fear is the same type of survival fear that you have if you're in a war zone and dodging a bullet, to your brain. So
Wow.
your brain can't differentiate. So fight or flight.
Just like that.
Yeah, it's the vagal system is kind of a crazy reaction. So once it's stimulated, once you have that hyper arousal, then it just starts going from there, and that pattern continues. So you have this hyper arousal, and then you have this feeling of dysregulation. You might
Mhm.
be able to say it's just a one-on-one, but you're anticipating something that could be very negative because it's happened over time. You are fearing the experience of that anxiety that you had previously. You're fearing it's gonna happen again. It's like the Sunday night scaries. It's
Yes.
when you have those, you might not have a bad Monday, but if you've consistently had horrible Mondays and you're dreading dealing with certain individuals or situations, it just becomes what your brain expects.
Man, I know our listeners have had some horrible Mondays. And so I think you putting this into perspective is very, very helpful. Now, we hear the term toxic workplace a lot, but today we are talking about trauma in a workplace. Is there a difference to you on the difference of a toxic workplace and workplace trauma?
I think a toxic workplace creates the trauma. And
Got
the
it.
trauma is going to be different for different individuals based on their feelings of safety, and how they interpret and how their brain interprets if they're safe or not. Also how they regulate it. So there's individuals that can regulate that toxicity in a way that they start managing the toxic reactions versus managing the entire system the environment that they're in. So it's, are you managing the environment or are you managing the reaction? That's really going to change
Hmm.
the idea of that toxic workplace.
What are some common signs that someone is experiencing trauma at work? Like even if they're high performing on the outside, they're managing their emotions.
Yeah, so there's a few things that you're going to see. So you're going to feel that on edge feeling. So basically, PTSD symptoms can be identified into four categories. So you're going to have hyperarousal. You're going to have like a numbness or a disassociation. You're going to have fatigue, and then you're going to have avoidance or withdrawal. So hyperarousal is that on edge, just anxiety just building up, and you can't sleep. You're worried. You're just not sure why.
Uh,
Disassociation or numbness is just that you just don't care. You've just lost,
Over it.
you're over it. Yeah.
Over it.
Zero, zero F's given. You just go in, you do what you have to do, you're checked out. Exactly. Peace. And then there's the fatigue where you're just always exhausted. You don't know why. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. Your brain is not sleeping. It's not resting. It's just constantly,
Wow.
it's processing memories or processing the what if. Okay, do we have to run? Do we have to hide? What do we have to do? And then there's the avoidance or withdrawal. And that's the idea of procrastination. That's putting things off, that's avoiding meetings, it's avoiding conversations. It's a different type of checked out. So you can disassociate and be present, but that avoidance is just that, not showing up for things, not being there physically and even psychologically.
That helps make it so clear because I have clients, right, that are dealing with burnout or handling promotions or new things. And, I've heard people say, oh my gosh, I just want to quit my job immediately. I have heard people say, wouldn't it be easier if I just went on FMLA so I don't have to deal with it?
Yeah. That's that
Right.
huge avoidance and that
Yes.
withdrawal and that numbness. So sometimes you want to just be numb to get through it. And but that leads to other issues where if you're not dealing with it, your brain still is. And
Yeah.
you have it's hard to learn new skills then too, right? It's hard to be present in your job and develop and grow when all you're doing is just trying to manage your fight or flight and get through dealing with a toxic manager, a toxic boss, or even a toxic organization. You're spending all your energy learning skills to survive versus skills that you need for your job.
If someone's in this type of environment for a long time,
Mhm.
how does that fear impact the person's brain and nervous system?
It impacts it significantly because what you're doing is you're wiring your brain to always live in fight or flight. You're never giving your brain that. People talk about psychological safety at work. What does
Mhm.
that mean? Psychological safety. Well, i- on the surface level, it means, do I feel safe having conversations or being able to show up in a certain way? That's that surface level. Deep down, what it means is, do I actually feel safe? Do I feel safe that if I speak up, the worst isn't going to happen? Is the sky actually falling or not? And so, how it shows, what happens is you start not understanding what safe means and what trust means. You're always living in
Wow.
this hyper aroused state. You don't trust anything. You don't feel safe, but then you don't trust yourself. So, if you have that whole idea of corporate gaslighting or even just, am I valued, right? Those types of things will affect you long term, and you will always question yourself moving forward because this is that slow drip. You're wiring your brain to never trust. You're wiring your brain to never feel safe. So you have that issue. You have health issues, right? You're going to start having heart palpitations. You might start having increased cortisol, gaining weight, feeling fatigue, stressed out. What do? Some people stress eat. Some people have other habits that they take on. And then that
Right.
regulating state, how do you know when to freeze or how do you know when to engage? What that idea of what normal is and being able to show up as your genuine self starts going away. So if you're in this you're retraining yourself. If you go on to a new role, or let's say you have a new leader come in, how do you go back to that person you were before, when you're just living in a state of fear that if I do X, then Y is going to happen. If I
Right.
speak up, this is going to happen, even though it might not. It's a different person, but you don't know that, and your brain doesn't know that yet.
That's amazing. I had a client this morning who, I swear, like, this is just perfect timing. And she told me she's had this long, successful career, new leadership came in, and she feels just beaten down to the point where she thinks that all of her past career has been a lie
Yeah.
because she must not provide value anymore. And
Mhm.
so, how is she even going to get a new job or a different job because she completely sucks?
That's absolutely, that is the
Amazing.
PTSD of poor leadership. She had a leader where she was spending her time managing that leader's reactions, and she wasn't focused on all of those wonderful skills she brought to the table, and those weren't being developed. They weren't being nurtured. She wasn't safe. And I mean, I've had that. I've had some
Right.
examples of some leaders that have left me with some questions. But I think it's a place where you have to know at what point do you reject it? Does your brain start rejecting that truth? Not necessary. Just because it's happening doesn't mean it's true. And
Right.
you really have to be very consciously aware. And for you as a coach, it's reinforcing that for your clients to be able to
Right.
say they're not mutually exclusive.
So, and this is interesting too, what I've
Mhm.
seen, tell me what you think. And you've worked with people at a high level, Olympic athletes, you work high level tech, right?
Mhm.
And I wonder, why are high achievers often the ones who stay in those traumatic environments the longest?
Competition, right? If you're a high achiever,
Mhm.
you've competed with yourself, you've competed with others forever, and that person's not gonna break you, they're not gonna win, and you're gonna prove it. So they're there. They're in it, and it's exhausting. It's really, really exhausting, and winning doesn't necessarily mean you've actually won. Winning just means you put up with it, and you've definitely paid the price along the way, but you're not teaching that boss a lesson. I'm going to show them. No, you aren't. I mean, y-
They're not going to get it.
they're never going to learn. They're never. This is who they are, um, and they're not going to learn. You're never teaching them a lesson. You're not changing them. So it's best to figure out how to preserve what you know is true about yourself and the skills that you have, and find that space where you can feel safe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for all of the high performers listening, you know who I'm talking to, all of you out there. What, Karen, are some of the signs that it's happening to them and they need to get out or make a
Um,
change?
yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different examples. If you start feeling anxiety before something that really, is kind of Pavlovian, right? So, um, a meeting can be that bell ringing where you start feeling that anxiety. If every time you have to have a one-on-one with your boss, you're feeling anxiety about what it's going to be like,
Yeah.
there you go. There's your red flag. If you have a leader who isn't taking the time to develop you and talk about your skills, they only want to be very reactive, and you're feeling that sense of anxiety, that feeling, that irritability sign. If you're starting to check out and feeling that sense of disassociation or increased procrastination, and then a rush to get it done, that's also a sign. If you don't feel that you can show up as your genuine self and have that be noticed and appreciated and kind of nurtured, then that leader is probably not there to develop you, but is there to serve themselves.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Great, great points. And I do wonder, from a leadership perspective, I was always worried about, I hope I'm not screwing this up for the team or other people. So, from that leadership and executive vantage point, how do organizations unintentionally create trauma, even when they don't mean to?
I think they unintentionally create trauma when they are so focused on an end state and they're so attached to that end state that they don't realize what happens along the way. And you have to kind of recognize that those steps. And it is a system. Something happens in one place, it's going to affect something else. So identifying all the systems that are, or individuals or teams that are going to be affected by a change that happens or a goal, and then having checkpoints and just being able to stop along the way and breathe and just be able to be like, just to check in, how's everyone doing, how's everyone feeling, are we bringing our what we need to the table, is anyone feeling that they're not, anyone checking out, anyone, but feeling, having those checkpoints along the way, I think is very important. And I think it's something we don't do. We just kind of
Keep
truck
going.
along for the end state, right? And then we're so focused on that end goal, and we're so attached to what's going to happen when we have that that end state, that we forget that there's all types of things that occur along the way. So
Yeah.
reducing that attachment to, when this is over, everything's going to be great. Nah, probably not.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's
No,
not. Nope.
it's not.
Yeah, there's gonna be something else, and then what damage occurred along the way, right? So, I think that
Right.
that's very, being very intentional about that process and really removing that attachment.
Yeah. So let's say organizations go through all of this trauma, right? They're only focused on the end state. They're bulldozing their way through
Mhm.
people and feelings and processes. Can organizations truly heal after living or operating in that traumatic state? And what has to be in place for that to happen?
I think what has to take place is what takes place in, well, when I was profiling. After you're working in with some pretty serious and very intense information, you have to have a debriefing period. So I think it's really important, even after a big project or a big um a big focus, or if you something escalated, you need to have a debriefing afterwards. I think it's
Yeah.
very important to allow people to not only have a debriefing from a professional and, did well, what went wrong from that perspective, but also let's have an emotional one. Did it take a toll? Did you miss a soccer game for your kids? Did you have to,
Right.
work late? Let's talk about that, because otherwise it just starts building resentment. And just
Right.
even acknowledging it is very important. So having that space, I always say the space, it's a Frankel quote. This, what happens between an action and a reaction, that space in between is very, very important. And we need to all stop and recognize that.
That's amazing. What do you wish more CEOs and other leaders understood about the human cost of business as usual?
And I think they need to understand the human cost of business as usual.
Say it
Um,
one more time.
I
You're
think
breaking up a bit.
they have to identify the cost, right? I mean, just it's exactly what you said. They need to recognize that it's just not about you're going to get more in your bonus, or I'm going to give you a spot reward. It's really about, people are there and in those jobs for the most part because they care about some piece of that role. People aren't in customer success or customer support because they like having, dealing with upset customers, right? They're there because they want to help and they want to turn things around. So I think understanding the intention behind why those
Mhm.
individuals are there is very important, and being able to recognize that and truly understand what psychological safety means. It's not about, do you feel safe speaking up and that no one's going to retaliate.
Nope.
Retaliation, yeah, it's
Right.
like, oh, okay. But we all know that retaliation happens in very subtle, passive aggressive ways later on down the road, because it's
Ye
just that idea of, I don't trust that that person isn't gonna do something and leave me out, or um, make a snide comment. I mean, I've heard it I've heard it. I had an ex-manager tell me flat out, "You're gonna be the scapegoat because you spoke up."
Awesome. Great. Good to
Yeah,
know.
thanks,
Thanks.
buddy. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
I trust
much.
you. Mhm. Yep, yep. Can't wait to come back here on Monday, you know,
Yeah. Pumped.
and
Not.
do that for you. Yeah, let me
Love
help
it.
you out. Let
Uh,
me just yeah, I didn't sign up for
no.
that. Not
Right.
getting a spot bonus to be a scapegoat, but I
Right.
know who you are, and now I know in the future that I don't trust a thing that you asked me to do.
Right. That coded
So,
into you.
understanding that those intentions and that resentment can build, I think, is important.
How did you go from this deep psychology background into being a leader in tech? And how do you use those skills?
Um, it's I'm gonna say it's no different. It's no different. Um, it's all about patterns of behavior, and it's about what's gonna happen next, and how everything that we experience is going to create what we do and how we react to things. So whether it's an individual who's done things that are really bad, or whether it's an organization that is going through change and just has, I mean, you're there all day, right? You're interacting with people. So patterns of behavior can be good patterns, they can be bad patterns. Your brain doesn't know the difference between good and bad.
Interesting.
Your brain does not have any concept of if X happens and then you react Y, if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It just, it's like be driving on a road. And so if you don't have any other roads to go to, it's just going to take the same route every single time. So,
Wow.
we do that at work. We have habits. So my transformation was I was I was working in the field of profiling for a very long time. It started taking its toll on how I viewed the world,
Can imagine.
and I needed a change. So I used those skills to identify um, how do we use that at work? How do we build a better mousetrap? How do we look at translating behaviors into the smoothest path? You know, how do we look at customers and being able to build that into some systems that are kind of early AI, because all behaviors can be turned into numbers, which can be turned into algorithms, which is basically AI. But also, how do you add in that human piece too? How do you add in that connection and that personality that people need and that they
Right.
want and that they react to? Right. So you're going to get that reaction from somebody. How do you predict what that reaction is based on what you're putting forward?
That's so cool to tie all of that back to you built it right into AI and the algorithm. So what's next for you in your career?
I don't know. I'm kind of trying to figure that out.
I
You
love
know,
that for you.
I thank you. I love it, the opportunity to be able to say, this is where I've been. This is what I know. And also this is what I need to learn. And I want to be in that space where I'm learning from a leader. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm reacting to a leader, and I want to be learning and I want to be growing and being able to take these skills and put them into an organization where we are solving those really interesting problems for our customers, um, for the organization itself, and even with industry wide. You know, everyone's talking about AI. They're trying to plug it in. Some people are scared of it, some people are excited, but and it's great. It's a lovely tool, but how do we hone that tool so it brings out the best in our employees and the best in our customers, and that we can take what we know about um, tech and take what we know about people and bring those together. To when do you have that trade-off? When is it a piece of technology? When does the human come in, and how do they work together?
Fascinating. Whoever gets to work with you is so lucky.
Oh, thank you.
Man, I wish I was larger than a team of one. 'Cause
I'd
I
love
would hire
it.
you like that for what? I don't know, but we would do something really fun.
It
But
would be very fun, very cool.
so right? Well, I do have a few quick fire questions for you. So just
Sure.
answer the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. What's a bold idea you've had recently that scares you just enough to try it?
Oh, a bold idea that I had to oh my goodness. Um, uh, m Packing up and moving to Europe. Yeah,
Yes.
real close. So
Oh, that's exciting. I can't
Mhm.
wait to hear more about that. Okay. If you could unmute one topic people aren't talking about enough, what would it be?
Oh, people are not talking enough about, how we, allow bad behavior to persist and, how we cover it up and that builds a DNA within an organization.
I want to give you a slow clap right now, Karen. What's one small daily habit that's had a big impact on your mindset?
Um, I meditate.
Great.
I read a lot, but I don't read anything. I just read fun types of fiction, and I watch complete trash TV to turn off my brain.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it.
I'm here for
Mhm.
that too. Okay, if listeners could take one action, not just an idea,
Mhm.
after hearing what you had to say today, what should it be?
They should name their PTSD, identify it, and just say, "This is what I have. It is from poor leadership." You're not hating. I mean, maybe you are quietly
Just a
hating
little
on the
bit,
person.
but
You save that for your friends or whoever you talk to, but really being able to identify it and reject it and say, this has come from a person, and I don't believe that to be true. I uh, this one person is not going to define my skills or my entire career of however long it's been. So identify it, name it, call it out, and then actively try to reverse that with the help of a coach, with the help of maybe a mentor, friends, but be able to say, I've shifted my beliefs and my patterns and my behaviors and my responses because of this one person who was probably just didn't even really care about me anyway. They were just
right.
working on their own agenda. So call it out, name it, and reframe it for yourself.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And last fast question. So, what's one word that captures who you're becoming right now?
Unapologetic.
Queen. So good. Well, Karen, this has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom.
Okay.
And before we wrap, I am curious what has it meant for you to share your story here on Unmute Yourself today?
I think it's part of being unapologetic. I think taking the lessons and taking what I've seen with teams that I've inherited, that when they talk to me about the PTSD that they have and what they need to get over, and me identifying what, some leadership mishaps that I've dealt with individuals. Just it means a lot to be able to say, I've had it happen to me. I've dealt with teams that are dealing with it. I just think it means everything to be able to talk about it and put it out in the open and just say, we have to change it. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Well, how can listeners connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm out there, reach out, connect. They can even just reach out to you. I'm sure you can pass them my
Absolutely.
way.
Happy to.
I'm always a sounding board. Anyone just wants to talk about what's gone on with them and how to heal from it. Please feel free to reach out even if they just need a safe place to vent. So I've heard it.
So good.
Literally, I've heard it all.
I can only
Oh,
imagine
yeah.
that you have,
Heard some
yes.
things. Yeah. So
I bet. Well, thank you again for
thank
sharing your
you.
story. Yes, and your wisdom. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to Unmute Yourself. If today's conversation inspired you, please share this episode, subscribe, like, follow, and stay tuned for more stories of leaders creating work that truly fits and matters. Until next time, unmute yourself and step into the story only you can tell.
Thank you.